Nerd Soul.
Hey guys, we are back. Hope you are enjoying the rent party. We are chilling right over here. Got Quinn McGowan right over here. Got Jason Reeves. Say what's up, fellas.
Hey.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We out here. We got live and online doing our thing. But we got a brand new panel, you know what I'm saying? Chilling. We've been seeing a lot of things on screen. You know, got our representation. You know what I'm saying? Got our Hollywood reparations, if you will. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna play with that word. We did not get no reparations. But we do have some awesome folks here to talk about the representation on screen. Of course, you know what I'm saying, being black and on screen means something. You know what I'm saying? We out here, we see all kinds of heroes. So we're gonna start from the bottom, because now we here. All right, so Sha-Nee Williams, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sha-Nee Williams. I'm a painter and illustrator based out in Brooklyn, New York. I do a lot of fantasy and video games, sci-fi, all that good stuff, and comics. And that's basically about it.
Word up, word up. And on the other side, we got Takeia Marie. What's up?
What's up, everybody? My name is Takeia Marie. I'm a freelance illustrator. I've done children's books. I've done stuff in advertising. I've done comic book work. And yeah, that's it. I'm an illustrator. Check me out.
Well, last but not least, Dorphise. You know what I'm saying? I had to spit that rhyme. You know what I'm saying?
How you guys doing? My name is Dorphise. I'm a comic creator slash writer. The genres I've written so far was fantasy, superhero, and also I just written noir. Thank you for having me.
Word up, word up. So we're on the screen now. What is basically just us running down, you know, where our feelings are. So I'll throw out the first thing that was on my mind is, you know, we've gotten a lot of views of heroism through, you know, whether it's small screen or big screen. And there's been a lot of conversation about how much or how little it really represents us, you know, from the day to day. And I mean, I know we're talking about people that are flying spaceships, but there are ways that we can kind of like connect it to our day-to-day lives. I'll throw it to Sha-Nee first. Do you feel seen or represented when you see these heroes, or are there examples that you can pull out where you're like, that I can identify with that made me feel proud to see that on the screen?
It's a long list. Well, yeah, for the most part, I mean, it gotten better over the years. Um, I can just say Storm, they still need to work
Oh
Storm
man.
out. I mean, Angela Bassett for the win, um, but I can say for the most part, it's working here and there. It's not much I can say at this moment because it's not going through everything, but um, I can say it is getting better. It's just it's a lot of reskinning and stuff that needs to be kind of checked. But overall, I feel like it's getting better. We're actually having the opportunities to be behind the scenes and be the writers and be the directors and actually tell our stories or just tell our stories outside of the stereotype stories that we kind of grew up with and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, you mean gang member number 3? You know,
Gang members, gang
you don't want that
members,
no more?
church goers. No shade to them or anything. It's just I'm tired of seeing it. I'm like, I know that we have our own fantasy stuff. We have our own folklore. We have our own folk tales. Whether we're in America, whether we are in Africa, whether we are in the Caribbean, throughout the whole diaspora, we have a whole bunch of stories, and nobody's utilizing that. At least anyone from here in this country is utilizing what our heritage and our culture derives from. And I would like to actually see more of that.
Where I remember, I can't name it off top. There's an animated, somebody's doing an animated series. I remember seeing, I think Robert Jeffrey might have posted the trailer or whatever, but somebody's doing something based on like a hero. somewhere in the Caribbean, but I can't remember. The animation was looking smooth, and I was like, oh word. I think Jason,
Yeah,
you know
it's
what?
like
Can't think of the
Some
name right
Haitian
now.
Revolution.
I can't
Okay.
think of the name right now, but it's like she's the devil. It's like
Yeah,
a
she's like
devil
able to
kind of,
tap into demon energy or whatever and stop
yeah,
like
yeah,
of course the things in the
yeah.
shadows and all that.
That was slick. That was real
Yeah.
slick.
So I thought that was cool. Real quick to Quinn, sort of jumping off the reskinning, the statement of the reskinning, and stuff like that. Do you think our heroes could expand a little more when it comes to just the lane that they're in or the lanes they are in?
Oh, okay. A couple of parts to that. As I see it, in answer to kind of your first question, how I feel about the current landscape is that not so much things are better, things are improving, things are good, things are great. The door is open to have more nuanced conversations, right? So we had to get a reasonable amount of representation on the screen to be able to address the way a lot of people feel about the casting machinations of someone like a Kenya Barris, right? You can't really have that conversation if we never see ourselves on the screen. So getting to the point where you can have 2, 3 characters, 4 characters in a show without everybody freaking out that it's a Black show, you can then begin to explore the nuance of how and why certain Black characters behave. Probably one of the better examples of that would be Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right?
Mm-hmm.
What Falcon and the Winter Soldier did well was it showed a bunch of Black opinions. It never said that one Black opinion was correct. Isaiah Bradley never came away from that show saying, well, I sure do feel differently about Captain America and the country and all of that stuff. Like, giving him a display in the effing museum doesn't take away the fact that dude did a 30-year bid for the exact same thing that white boy Steve Rogers did. So being able to have a nuanced conversation around Blackness is where I feel we're getting to, because it's one thing to be on the screen, it's another thing to be represented accurately, represented with the vein of truth, represented outside of the context of the lens of the white gaze, right? There are 100 other things that have to be kind of broached before we start, standing on the Selma Bridge singing and shit. Like, we got a little ways to go before we're in that space. But the door being open, and not that it's the outside audience's business, but even to be able to pick up on the nuance that we don't all feel the same way about stuff, right? Like, just being able to have that conversation is a place that we've never been before, because you were either going to be the Black character or you weren't going to be on the show.
Yeah, you're going to be like the Black friend.
Right. But the main thing is that, people kind of forget the fact that we're just human. We just happen to have a darker skin color and a deeper and different experience. Well, not deeper, but you know what I mean? Different experience. Mm-hmm. But we're just human. We bleed the same color. Right. We get sick like everybody else. We do mundane things every day like everybody else. So I don't see why people tend to just forget that and not, look at us as individuals. So
yeah, that's such a humanistic thing that I think the way we consume media, part of what we're doing is campaigning to normalize being human, right? Like, we're still very much in the space where every Black thing is foreign, like it's happening on another planet, because that's around empathy, right? I was talking to a friend a few days ago about just the ways that it affects us all, right? When on average, when a white child is in the store, he knocks over the display or he runs over and he's having a sugar rush and he's wilding out, the mom just kind of embarrassingly gathers them up and goes, kids, right? What are you going to do? Our parents, before we even get out of the car in the parking lot, don't touch nothing, don't look at nothing, don't do nothing, don't breathe.
You ain't got no money.
Rights as a person, But because we know that society is going to judge us harsher, they're going to say that she's a bad parent. They're going to say that we're monsters that can't control ourselves and don't have impulse control. But children usually run around. Children usually pick at things that they're not supposed to, right? So when you talk about that kind of normalization, even with Michael, right, normalizing his son operating in a space that belongs to him and operating like a person who lives there. You've never seen Michael on the episode of NERDSoul yell at his kid or get on his kid or yell to his wife to get the kid because
he be beating me up.
There. He's a child. He's supposed to be nurtured and loved. So we are human. It's a campaign about getting them to resonate with that humanity outside of trauma, right? They can always understand who we are. Oh my God, with the beatings and the shootings and the killings. And I watched all 7 hours of the killings and shootings. It's almost like they're a little too with it. And that's the only way that they can humanize with us. But that's on the level of what my big mama would refer to as the stuff you wouldn't do to a dog. That's not our humanity. That's them feeling humanity in themselves for what they perceive as empathy. So we got a lot of work to get past that, right? Because what they see of themselves on the screen is normal and what they see of us is foreign. So
yeah, a lot of that is down to the normalization of whiteness. Because when you normalize a thing, you see the humanity in that thing. White people have been for the longest able to create, whether we're talking about movies, books, whatever kind of media you consume, they've been able to be everything without being judged for who they are, as a person. Whereas we don't get that. We don't ever get that. If you make a show about one drug dealer, all of us are drug dealers. If you make, like, one thing that I see that's happening that kind of a little bit bothers me is we've been saying for a long time that we need Black horror, right? And I think Jordan Peele really kicked that off, and I'm really glad that he did. But there seems to now be this trend of we just gonna do Black horror based on racism and trauma because that's what's selling right now.
Right.
And not saying that you shouldn't have that, but don't let that become the new slave movie where all we get is slave movies. Before it was all we got was cookout movies. Before it was
church
all we
movies.
got, you know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly.
Church movies, gangster movies.
Let us make a bunch of different things the same way you allow white people to make it. Because the truth is, the reason white people are treated with so much humanity and so much forgiveness, even if they go shoot up a church full of Black people, is because the media that people are consuming shows them in various different lights. So that's why you see when, you have like a Dylan Roof, he must have been, he was a lone wolf.
There's a Joker movie for that.
Yeah, exactly.
There is.
They talk about the trauma that they must have experienced and treat them with empathy, despite the fact that they just mowed down a bunch of people in a school or a church or in a movie theater.
I love how they're always lone wolves. It's always a lone wolf, but it's so many lone wolves, you begin to think that it's a pack of lone wolves. And maybe lone wolf doesn't mean what they think it means.
And my point is,
it's like taking in venom, right? Like you're taking little pieces of venom, like that white media is like little pieces of venom you're putting into yourself, and it helps you empathize, right? Like the venom is the empathy, and now you're inoculated against it because you've been you've taken the Joker movie, you've taken the what is that movie with it's the movie where the Black activist lady befriends the white Klansman dude, and they come together and they help the town, and that kind of stuff. So
Savior movie.
Exactly. So, the one with Taraji, I'm talking about that recent one.
Yeah,
and
I know thought about. I can't think of the title.
Yeah,
or
Best
you got
Friends or Best
Queen
Enemies,
Sugar,
something like
with
that.
a whole girl on that.
Well, and I agree with what Takeia is saying. It's like, so if you consuming all that, so when something real happens, then you're like, oh, this is why though. I can empathize because I've brought that into, that's in my memory, that's in my brain. Like, no, totally.
That's why stories are so powerful, because people really get what they think of people from the media that they consume, from the stories that they consume. And of course, if the people who are making the stories want to see themselves in the best light, they will always present themselves in the best light in these stories. And this is why it's so important to have a diversity of perspectives and to let Black people tell our own stories.
Yes.
Right.
Now, speaking of that, because I did want to also touch that too. You know, since these shows are not happening in a bubble, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, Snapchat, I don't know, Friendster, whatever, MySpace, we're on everything. And we're talking about these shows. We're on YouTube talking about these shows. And there is this guy from Story Geeks, Jay. He's a white guy, but he watched the finale of Captain America that I did with like 4 or 5 other Black men. And we were just talking about being Black in America. At least in my family, my generation was the first generation where every man didn't serve in the military. So, but that is still kind of like the energy in my family is like military kind of feel. So, and I wasn't the only one where it was like a whole lot of men served. So we were talking about like that, what it means. And he expressed how like, even though he's not Black, it opened his eyes because he never saw Black men just talking about this. And of course, like different ages, different hues and all this, and just different perspectives, because there's things that we agreed on, things that we fought about on that episode, things that we, you know, as far as like, you know, whether the shield or should shield be destroyed or should be given back, or should someone go to jail, or should someone get, you know, more than just a spot in the museum, all of that. And he said he's never seen anywhere where Black men were just talking so candidly about it, and he learned so much. And I think that kind of goes in line with what we were talking about, what you were saying just a second ago, and we have a bunch of writers in here, is we don't really have the perspectives behind the scenes to inform the characters that are on screen in a lot of cases. Like there are some, like there's some that we can pick out, like Lovecraft Country, Watchmen, Captain America, Winter Soldier. But then there's also some that's just like, you know, is the Black hero or heroes, and they're just written by like everybody.
I'm
Well,
like,
Superman
shout out
and
to
Lois
like,
comes to mind for me because of the firing of one of the few Black voices on that show, and a Black woman to boot. And just following that whole arc, I think another thing that is changing, that's happening a lot more quietly because, you know, it's a more delicate thing. One, the era of there can only be 5 Black actors in all of Hollywood. There can only be 5 Black actresses in the game. That's beginning to change. But also the delicacy of what kind of Black you have to be behind the scenes. I think for the longest time, they were comfortable because they knew that a certain percentage of us would go ahead and do whatever we needed to do to get back there. And so you're already dressing yourself for how you're going to behave and how you're going to react and how you're going to treat certain things in that space. That a lot of people were going back there knowing that they would be human shields for controversy, knowing that they would be put on display to talk about the product, but not have much in the way of say and influence. I think people are becoming more vocal. So there'll be this little naked space where maybe we'd like more of us working, but they're going to have to realize that you're going to have to let real people come into those spaces, and you're going to have to treat them as people and not props. So I think this evolution around our humanity is a thing that's happening around, like, you know, across the whole boards, right? So in front of the camera, behind the camera, we have to have our equity, we have to be treated right, we have to be seen, we have to be heard, we have to be, you know, given space to fight for what we think is right or what we want. And for a long time, that space was chopped up in a real nice way to where if you even got the job, you wasn't gonna say nothing, you wasn't gonna see nothing, wasn't gonna hear nothing because it was worth it, you know, the mortgage or whatever. But the more you can do on your own, the more you can make by yourself. As we say in Memphis, the more you can get buck. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, yo, because we have spaces, those spaces are granted to us because a lot of people are doing it on their own, right? A lot of people are putting their money up and making those spaces. And if you have to compete with that, because those spaces are making money, then the other studios, the white studios or whatever, have to start making those spaces as well. So it's kind of like what we've been saying for a long time. Like, yo, do it yourself real quick. And now that's starting to actually, like, now that that's starting to be fruitful, the white media is like, oh shit, this makes money. Man. They got $1 trillion, 1 point whatever trillion spending power. Let's go and let's start making these spaces. We have to make them comfortable now, like a little bit, at least incrementally. And I want to say too, shout out to that show, The Upshaws on Netflix. Yo, talk about humanizing people. I mean, Wanda Sykes, big ups. Like
I haven't peeked a lot, but I know she killing it.
It's a trip. Mike Epps on that show is like one of the worst. He's the worst, man. But at the same time, it humanizes that crappy daddy who his heart. You know he wants to be good, except he was tainted by the hood or whatever. Like whatever his circumstances was. And I find that show so refreshing because usually it's like Malcolm Jamal Warner, but he's also a doctor of education and he's married to upstanding Tracy Ellis Ross, that kind of thing where we have to be, that sort of Huxtable thing where we have to be the best. But these two people, Kim Fields, Mike Epps are like regular people. She's trying to go back to school. He's a mechanic, but he just can't get right. I mean, like he's stealing money from her at one point, and it's a big blow up. And it's just like, yo, but we're still humans in that show. And I find that show to be so refreshing in that vein, So, when we get us behind the camera, we can steer those nuances right into the media. And I say that show is like a triumph to me in that vein.
The ability to do that is on the other side of that extreme, right? They're humanized so much that we get characters like Peter Griffin, right? You get characters like Homer Simpson, and they become endearing. You can go that far. Like you can just abuse your children and shoot the cat out of a cannon and still, that Homer. So to create a space where you have a Mike Epps who can at times be reprehensible in his actions, but also that gets into the nuance of having the luxury of having characters that are extreme expressions, that are caricatures, and having the nuance to be able, like when it's somebody else, it's like, oh, this is so thought-provoking that, you see that obviously this is a representation and a metaphor for but like, okay, well, we got scummy people that'll give you a moral too. Like, so
Alligator Man.
Alligator Man had knowledge though.
Come on with that.
Alligator Man
out looking like Jackie Joyner Kersey down that block in the back.
Yo, Alligator Man had knowledge
was fire, yo. Like that was again another triumph of Black media. Showing this particular character with this particular set of circumstances, but also more sympathetic than like, every other character in that episode. Like, whatever awards were given were absolutely deserved because it was just like, man, I was watching that and it feels like people that you've known or relatives that you've had and people that you love. And that is the triumph.
And speaking real quick, and big shout out to Atlanta for doing an episode that I identify with so much. There's an episode where the dude, he's a barber, right? And all Paperboy want is a haircut. And they gotta go around the whole city where he can get one cut. Man, but see, that can only come from people that are like, yo, man, look, we love our barbers, but they be on that stuff sometimes. Like they be like, Clint, oh yeah, by the way, you know what I'm saying? How about we? You be like, dude, I got somewhere to go.
I love the barber's reactions. Like, man, relax, I'm gonna do it. Like, chill.
So, I'm gonna throw this out to everybody. Is there an example yet of a show where you're like, okay, they get it? Like it might not be perfect, but you're like, they get it. They're on the right track. They're representing kind of like the fullness of our experience or experiences. Because there's some people that I've come across that are like, all this new stuff is just trash and everything. I'm like, well, I don't know if I say it's trash. Like I remember growing up in the dark days where it's like you had like, all right, who we got? All right, oh, the friend of the friend. All right, cool. He's on 2 episodes this season. All right, well, I'll just wait for him. So I remember those days. I'm sure you guys do too. So is there a show out there, whether it's like sci-fi or maybe on the drama side where you're like, okay, cool. We got it. They're nailing it. They're getting it.
Another long list.
Yeah. I like how Lovecraft Country kind of tackled the idea. I can't remember the character's name, but the sister,
Ruby,
I think it was, dark-skinned sister,
yeah,
who with the whole transformation, into, and I thought that was such a great metaphor for what, I think what trying to navigate being Black in a white space is. And it literally hurt her to do it. It physically hurt her to do it. And I thought that they captured such a great metaphor in the way that they handled that.
Yeah, because I'm sure at least some of us have been, milling around in the morning like, all right, dear Lord, don't let me hit nobody today. I just want to go to my desk and do my work. So yeah. Lovecraft, they held it down on a couple of fronts. Shouts to them.
It was dope. It was dope to see her put on that skin and then go to work and then fellowship with the other white coworkers and just see what their world was like. And her head was just tripped out, kind of figuring out, this is what these women do when they include you, just how inviting they were to her. And she was a new girl, but she wasn't Black. That was really good. I agree. That was
And then how she jumped on the coworker who was actually like, yo, the reason I wasn't here is because the other lady isn't working and she told me to be there. So because that's another thing, when in some places, when you work in that retail or corporate environment, everybody's your boss. And that's a whole nother game. But everybody's essentially your boss. Sort of. The title won't say it, but kind of your boss.
And they did a good job too, I think, with even the colorism dynamic. Her being the darker skinned sister, the kinkier hair and all that, versus her sister who was a little bit entitled on some fronts, but she had it easier because she was lighter skinned. Not saying that she had it easy and didn't deal with anything. There definitely were things that were dealt with, but her sister had to navigate this corporate, or retail world in this situation, where because a lot of what happened to her, what she experienced, was simply because she was darker skinned too. Yeah, and I thought that they, and so I think that made that transformation that she had to go through every day even more real. Because had that been a light-skinned character, I don't think it would hit the same.
Absolutely. The subtext there was also the darker sister stayed and took care of the mom and everything. And the light-skinned sister got to travel and have all these different jobs and be a photographer and stuff. That was some good, that was meaty. That was really good. Yeah.
That's a nuance you're not gonna get with a white writer's room.
Right.
I
was hugely affected. I was a big fan of Hippolyta's storyline, particularly her getting to a place where she could tell her husband, I thought of my big mama. I thought of all the women that I know that are from a time who are these brilliant people, like my grandmother, my aunts. These are brilliant orators that lived in a world where there was no place for that brilliance. And even the men who loved them, right, in spite of their best efforts, in spite of what they meant or felt that they were doing, right? The ability just to express. I think that's another thing that as we move forward, and I think about the concept of Blackness in regards to unity, the freedom to be different, the freedom to express our pain or to say that we're not satisfied with things within the context of still being a part of the big plan, right? Hippolyta did her fucking work. She came in, saved the day, and did her part and fought and did all that stuff, but she still had the right to tell George, you clipped me. Right? You clipped me. You clipped my shine. You didn't give me a chance to be, and I feel a way about that. I'm not going to abandon the mission. I'm not going to drop out, but I need to be able to say that. And I thought that was really powerful. I thought that was really beautiful. I thought that did a lot of work in terms of speaking to the nature of relationships and how they can be healthy and grow from a place of honesty. So I don't have one particular show, but I feel like a lot of the shows are doing a lot of great things, right?
I got one, but to jump off of that, there's also a part in that conversation, and this is paraphrasing because I haven't seen the show again yet, but she said something like, basically like you clipped me, and then basically I let you. And it just hit me like there's two people that love each other and still left things unsaid, like super loved each other. And still, like he was like, yeah, I felt you kind of like throttling yourself or pulling back, but I just let it happen. And then she was like, well, I didn't say, so you have these two people, they love each other. I mean, you see the beginning of the show, but still, like they just leave these things unsaid, and you're like, oh man. And I ain't gonna front, after that episode, I was like, baby, is there anything? Because you get the life of it all. You're in the rat race, and then it's 5 years later. It's like, oh yeah, we never did this thing, we didn't do that thing, and we were thinking about doing this thing. We just got caught up. And not to throw HBO too much love, but Watchmen.
Yes.
When Regina King opened up that closet, and the Grandmaster Grand Wizard gear or whatever was there, they had gone to parties together. They had been singing songs, eating dinner with each other. She was like his surrogate daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they were tight.
He was godparents to her children.
Yes. I mean, she knew about his coke problem, all of that. They were.
She even warned him at dinner.
Right.
She tapped her. She was like, you need to clean your nose.
Yeah.
and that the Klan uniform was in the closet like a superhero uniform.
Thank
you.
It was enshrined.
Yeah, it was a costume enshrined, obviously identically to the comedian's hideaway closet in the original, but the Klansman as a hero, right? The white knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the Grand Order, the 14 words, right? We must protect all that kind of jive that they be on. It's I think that can't be underserved. And I love Watchmen for its ability to have a Black story in it, but for it to be written, constructed, and designed as a true sequel to the Watchmen story. That was the thing that I found so entertainment. I think one of the first times I really went viral with a tweet online was dunking on a dude, because the first time I think I ever went to Comic-Con, I was on a panel and the editor of the original comic was the moderator. So we talked about it, and so he was like, you probably don't even know anything about Watchmen. So I just put the picture up and then he blocked me, which was weird because I had so much more to say to him. But it was that the show was built as, it's just a sequel. It's a sequel in so many ways, right? The comic book was designed to do what a comic book can do that nothing else can do. So Dr. Manhattan's perception of time is the way a comic book works. I can skip to the end of the comic book. I can jump all over the book, but I can't change the outcome of the book. I can know what's going to happen, but I can't do nothing about it, right? Well, this was constructed as an homage to the 9-panel grid on the comic page. 9 episodes, right? And the way that all played to where the Hooded Justice being a black man was just a wonderful wrinkle, right? It wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't a gotcha moment. It was a thing that made sense as a continuation to a story that suggested that we never really knew who Hooded Justice was. We had some guesses, we had some clues, but no confirmation. So for me, it was about watching the story. I'm like a huge fan of the Watchmen book. So watching that as a piece and as an addendum to the original, right? It didn't feel like the Zack Snyder joint. It felt like a continuation to that comic book. It was brilliant. And the last thing I'll say about that is one of the greatest lines in recent television history is, you can't heal under a mask, Angela. Wounds need air. That's one of the most beautiful lines in recent television history. And shout out to Lou Gossett Jr., right? For just being cold-blooded in general. And still batting 1,000. You know what I'm saying?
And I love how
himself, and I stood up and cheered alone in my living room.
Yo,
he was really, really good.
I love how homie was at the end. He was like, he was an all right guy. Still felt like he could have did more. And it's like,
boom,
because when you look at the amount, it's the argument about, like Bruce Wayne's money and stuff like that. It's like, well, since we know pretty much every issue in America derides or is kind of like broken down to finances in some area, you know what I'm saying?
They're not gonna let you put CRT in school, Michael.
It's like, well, can't Bruce Wayne kind of fix Gotham with most? Like, all right, we're talking about, we have issues with bail. Well, that's a money issue. The schools, that's a money issue. Judicial system, well, I can't afford a lawyer. That's a money issue. Most of these issues dribble down to money. I can't go to the hospital because I ain't got no money for that. I can't get the car fixed because I ain't got no. But how many of us have bought all 4 tires at once? Boom. Why? Because we're not Bruce Wayne. So it's like all these kind of small things, and I'm like, yeah, Bruce Wayne probably could have fixed the city on his own.
But if you think about it, Bruce Wayne
sold his heart to the streets.
He could do all of that. He was going straight to the hood and be rather beat people up and break up property than to help them. But if you think about it, Bruce Wayne would prefer to be the hero, and it's like that white savior thing all over again. He would prefer, rather than to use his money to actually help people and actually build equity for people, he would rather be seen as the Dark Knight.
Right.
And that's the utmost amount of privilege.
But aside from the fact that city is oddly lousy with doctors, it's the fact that he know good and well who would go and fill out an application to work for the Joker. You understand what I'm saying? But here he is, jumping off a 2-foot rooftop to break this dude's clavicle and ask, "Where's the Joker?" Hey man, I don't know. He got my niece in a basement somewhere in the docks, and I gotta watch this truck full of guns. So I really can't help you with what you're asking me about. Like, I don't even understand how that works. Your man should have just sat up with Leslie Thompson and probably worked it out. Maybe put up a monument in Crime Alley. Your man ain't even built a statue of his parents or nothing. Put up a little light. They knocked down the Twin Towers. They shot a spotlight up out there. I mean, like anything. He could have not been a crazy man running out at night in his pajamas is what I guess I'm saying. But I got my own problems with the whole Bruce Wayne, because all of that, I do what I do so that no child should ever feel the way that I did. Hey, this book started with a murder. You're terrible at your job.
There's people still getting murdered.
Batman thing start off with some kid's parents didn't get off. You've never stopped a child from going through what you went through. In fact, now they're traumatized because they're pretty sure a shadow that looked like a bat ran down the street after their parents got murdered.
That is.
Right.
Like, you with my daddy ass, though. I mean, he's crippled now.
Like, you almost killed my daddy.
Now I must become a dark Avenger.
And now we're homeless.
Straight up.
But yeah, Watchmen did a lot of things right. And for me personally, one of the best things is suggesting that the Black woman is a god. So
Yeah, that was that.
I
And
also
then
like
also,
people were kind of like about the ending, like, oh, it just
Mhm.
ends. We need a season 2. And I'm like, I kind of feel like I don't need a season 2 personally,
I
nah, they
don't.
because
kind of they
also
kind
what
of
I
wrapped
like
everything
is
up.
she cracked the egg, she took the egg, and then she stepped onto the water, you know, Jesus, all Jesus like, and the
Mhm.
potential of the Black woman is God is
Yeah.
so fulfilling to me, that I don't need a season 2. I could correct that in my brain. I'm thinking she did big things and the world changed, and
Yep.
she's probably changed so much that we can't even conceive of the changes. So we don't need a season 2. Let
Right.
it,
We don't
you
need
know,
to see it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, you got Cyborg, you know what I'm saying? Yo, he got all the power to give us the reparations right now. You know what I'm saying? You saw he
Mm,
went in the bank account, he said, and I was like, yo, I feel you, dog. Now, my antennas is like, you ain't done yet. But I understand you just getting those powers. You're dealing with there's aliens coming, you know, Diana asking you to help. I get it. So, you know, next week we'll get I understand. Next week we'll
Now
wait.
that actually leads me to a question I'd like to throw out to everybody. How do y'all feel about a lot of these reactions to the casting decisions, which I should say, full disclosure, I think oftentimes happen because you have white IP creators who created product 15, 20 years ago, right? In a climate where you know you can't get that kind of love at DC. At DC and Marvel, at best, you could be Jim Starlin. They'll be like, hey, you see this old dude that's not getting any real money? He made the guy that's in the movie. Clap for him. That's all they get. So your Mark Millers, right? You got a lot of people, Neil Gaiman, they got their own IP that are making their own stuff. And being politically savvy, whether they mean it earnestly from the bottom of their hearts or not, they know that it's smart to change a person over here, character over there, maybe a character that was nondescript back here, into somebody Black or brown. How do y'all feel about, and does it make you all laugh the way it does for me, when white people seem to have literal breakdowns to the point where last week, hand to God, I saw more than 1,000 people argue with Neil Gaiman about Neil Gaiman's characters
We did a
and
show
Neil
on it.
Gaiman's decisions about Neil Gaiman's character. I found it fascinating that the level of ownership among some people is so high that they think they own things that don't even belong to the way.
Yeah. Good.
So anybody with that.
It kind of goes back to the reskinning comment that I made earlier, right? And it happens in video game movies, like how we were, like a lot of people were up in arms about Albert Wesker for Resident Evil, how
Lance
the
Reddick.
actor, I think Lance Reddick, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to him for being Commander Zavala in Destiny, for anybody that plays Destiny. So for me personally, I feel like I'm not mad, but I'm not excited either because, you know, video games don't have a really good history with movies and TV shows.
Right.
Some do, some don't. Most of them don't.
Right.
Like with that decision, I felt like they could have just kept the guy white. No shade to the actor. The actor's, again, phenomenal. I love his voice. He's up there with the voice gods.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could have used a lot of characters that are people of color in the game series itself. I mean, granted, I can only count 5 on my hand for Resident Evil series, but it's one in particular from Resident Evil 5, and he only got one little spotlight in 5 for helping Jill Valentine. And they could have, you know, fleshed him out more. Now, I don't know if the show is based off of the beginning, like the mansion, like Resident Evil 1 vibes, or maybe they're kind of going in a little further up until like 5, up until like 8 Village. But I feel like they could have fleshed out that particular character more from 5, and they could have done something to bring him into the cinematic universe or to bring him into the television universe. But then again, I guess reskinning kind of works in certain situations, I guess. Like Nick Fury.
I think So I think it's a mix, right? Like there's the absolute there's no question that you're obviously a fan of the game series and that you know the universe well. So there is
like
you know it pretty well.
I wouldn't play it because I am not I am a gamer, but that's one of the genres I don't play. I like to watch people play. Mainly because if I'm playing horror, because if I can't play horror because I panic. And if I panic, I don't want to break my $50 controller.
No, 100% agree.
Yeah,
100%
so I'm not I'm not the type to play horror games, but I watch it. I watch people play. I watch my fiance play. I know the Resident Evil universe because I got people in my life that play it, and I also watch streamers play it. And I watched them play from the beginning to the end because the story is so interesting as well as the characters. You just won't catch me playing it though.
Right. But to that point, because you're knowledgeable, there's on the one hand the legitimate, I know this character, I followed this character, I'm attached to this character, and I want the authenticity of that character to shine through. There is that element of it.
Right.
With reskinning, part of that comes from, I think, when everything in the world by kind of default is on average usually going to be a white guy. And really the only reason that is kind of the familiarity of whiteness. Then reskinning comes into play when, if that's the only thing that made him, then is it really a problem if Lance Reddick is the guy that has the red glowing eyes? I think the other thing that I saw someone arguing, and I don't have a dog in the Resident Evil fight, but I remember reading a lot about this. They were like, Resident Evil, in terms of its cinematic iterations, has always varied so wildly from the games that
it's terrible. It's terrible.
That it seems a bit odd that the space where everybody's going to get worried about the verisimilitude of how this is being performed starts with whether or not the guy is Black, right? That I think was a thing for me, and that falls for me in line with what I was saying about how progress really feels, that we're not in the great time of Blackness yet. We're just now entering the time where we could talk about how Blackness functions because there are enough of us on here. So we're just entering the time where reskinning may have been an answer, but there's also a legitimate desire for the representation of the character as iterated. So
there's another there's another point too with Michael B. Jordan being the Black version of
you're reading
Clark Kent. So
Man, I'm so tired of people being mad about that.
But it's the thing though, it's the fact that there's 3 Black Supermen.
Boom. You got Valkyrie, you got Khalil,
and you got John Henry Irons. You have him, and he's like one of the oldest Superman characters out there. So it's like, instead of just reskinning Clark Kent, you could have just used any of those 3, especially John Henry Irons, because he only popped up, besides the terrible movie, he had the Justice League animation where he just popped up for a quick minute, and then
I wish Kazam could make that movie disappear.
And then you had I don't know if any of you guys watched Superman and Lois, but he was mentioned in there, popped up in there. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of the best iterations of him. It was this show right here, Superman and Lois, and that's actually one of the best CW shows right now, despite the mini controversy that it started with.
Yes,
but
I feel you.
But it's just the fact that they got lazy with that. And Michael B. Jordan's a phenomenal actor, but he could have played these other 3 characters that have been on the back burner.
I hit you with another one. They could have made an Icon movie. But what do I
know? They could have done that. Well, they could have done that too.
On top of the reskinning this whole... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna... I feel like... Just to jump... Wait, I don't know which one of us is talking.
Do you think?
I just wanted to make the point that even with the whole reskinning thing, the goalpost is always moved. Because I remember when there were talks about when they were talking about a Black Superman, and they were like, oh, Superman could never be Black. They remember a scientist came out and said, well, actually, scientifically, Superman would be Black. Because if he gets his energy, if we're involved in the sun, it would make sense for him to be darker skinned. And then everybody was like, well, you know what? F science. So then, so then I remember after that they came
I
out
feel
with,
like we've been doing that for like the last 10 years or so, but yeah, go ahead.
Ariel, the Little Mermaid, is gonna be black. Then all of a sudden people would be like, well, scientifically, that deep in the ocean, you wouldn't get much light. So she would get pale. I was like, oh, so now we back on science, we use science when we want it, and then go against it when we don't.
to quote a guy online, I won't say his name because I know it brings people's ire up sometimes with his name, but the idea of I'm white and I say so. Exactly. It's like, well, see, scientifically, because there's always this hyper specific reason. But I think with the reskinning, you do have this. I know that Hollywood understands that there's a power to the black algorithm juice. I know they understand it. So they're like, because when you have certain shows, the fandom is, they can see like, oh man, we ain't getting a lot of tweets about this show. Oh, black show, and it's good. Look at all these tweets. Look at all this Facebook engagement. Look at all these videos. Blah blah blah. Look, so sometimes I think, like in cases of Neil Gaiman, between there's a documentary that this guy I know did on him. Between seeing a lot of his interviews, he seems genuine. But I know there's also other people in Hollywood that are like, look, man, let's just get some black folks because it'll get it going. And so it's trying to figure out when it is and isn't genuine, but because when it's not genuine, even though we do get some shine, back to what Quinn was saying about people being behind the scenes, we don't really get the shine because then they're not going to be represented in a way where they're just not going to be represented in a way where it's like it seems natural.
And
my mind wants it to make sense, right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm across the board, reskin all them mugs. Like, fine, like
I mean, if it makes the story work, then that's great because it worked for Nick Fury too. So it did work for Nick Fury. So if it works, then that's great.
Right. In my mind, I want it to make sense most of the time, right? Don't get me wrong. Like aesthetically, make everybody black. But that aside, like for Albert Wesker to be Lance Reddick, not even just black, right? But like Lance Reddick seems a little like we are actually reskinning to reskin, right?
Listen, if I see him as Wesker, all I'm gonna think about is Zavala. Like, what you got for me today with Zavala?
Right. Well, he usually plays that sort of guy in the office character who directs everybody, right? He's the director. Like he would be a great Nick Fury type character. Awesome. But Wesker is like spy, hands-on kind of agent, really field agency.
Like he's suspect.
Right. And I feel like, you open the door and Wesker's there smoking a cigarette, like, ha ha ha, like that kind of stuff. I don't know if I see Lance Reddick as that particular character, but Sha-Nee, I like what you said about like, okay, if we're gonna go the reskin length, then maybe let's kind of see if there were other characters that we could just make bigger, that we can flesh out more. To me, that's more genuine than saying, okay, now Clark Kent is black. Like, why do we need to do that at all? Like, I understand the mechanism behind it, but aren't we supposed to be storytellers though? Shouldn't we want to flesh more things out? Like, shouldn't we want to create more characters business-wise for merchandising? Like,
and there's a lot of characters that were created and they've been put in a back burner. And look at Black Lightning. Like he just got out for Young Justice, and then when he became so popular, that's when the live action show came out. Right. So and he's been around for so long,
right?
And then Static got more popular than he did, and they basically have the same powers. What I mean?
Like, as a creator that has a character who shoots fire out of his hands, I can say that 1 and 2 superheroes shoot lightning. If they're black. But to that end, though, I think that the other component that the richness of television and creativity over the past few years has kind of taken off of the table that we don't pay enough attention to is commerce is a part of this equation. It really feels like
toy
the
sales.
richest, most creatively filled time in terms of story, right? When we get a story now, it isn't just engrossing. It takes you somewhere, you know, like we've reinvented the surprise ending. We find ways to create new twists. There's a lot of richness in storytelling. It is still richness dictated by commerce. So it's important to remember that at the time that Disney, right, who is known, their whole reputation is, what's the thing y'all already been had on time? Okay, we bought it. Now we finna do it, but it's finna be cute. You remember that John about the creepy dude that kissed the girl while she was sleeping? We made it cute. You remember that other thing about the creepy prince that did the weird thing with the girl? We made that cute too. That's their game. So when they took Marvel, they were like, oh, okay, we're gonna build this out. We're gonna take 12 years with a C-list character and make you care about him when he snap his finger. That's masterful, process-driven storytelling that's calculated by commerce. Meanwhile, at Warner Brothers, okay, we just sold it to AT&T and they need $1 billion because we made $1 billion off the last Batman movie. Let's go. Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll put Batman in the Superman movie. That's what they did. And
everybody will love it.
$1 billion. So it was like, okay, we got to get rid of this crap because we cannot do anything with it. Wait, why don't we try to color everything the same color as the Avengers? Yeah, I got an idea. Get me Whedon. Okay, I want you to make everything bright. And then it didn't work. So then it was like, man, what are we going to do? I don't know, man. I just think we ought to make a streaming service and probably get some money that way. So then it was like, you could hear Snyder cut, Snyder cut, Snyder cut. So they were like, I bet you they'll subscribe the crap out of this joint if we put the Snyder cut on there. Meanwhile, at D23, hey, everybody, we've got programming for the next 10 years, and it only costs $5.99 a month. Say hello to the mouse again. So you have two different operating systems, one which was arrogantly thinking, we invented the superhero genre. We're the first ones to make a lot of money. Look at all the money we made with Batman. When Iron Man came out, they only made this much, and we made this much. We got this on lock. That's what they said. So you don't have any room for real strong storytelling. Zack Snyder had a particular vision, right? I'm not here to say good, bad about that vision. I'm saying that. No. I've never said good or bad about the vision. I've had plenty to say about fan base and plenty to say about execution, right? When people are like, oh, that movie is so, expressive. It's the kind of storytelling that only 4 hours of footage can allow you. I'd better know something about who the hell Cyborg is after 4 hours. So I'm not knocking that. He should have had all the room and runway in the world to execute the 2 movies that he wanted to make. I'm not hating on him about that at all. I'm hating on the corporation that put all of their money on the darkest, grittiest iteration of the characters that represent hope and goodness for people. Exploration? Absolutely. The threat that Superman could be a damage to the world? Sure. These are real world concerns that every iteration should have. I've never had a problem with Man of Steel. Everybody that said, oh, all the people that died. Sokovia would like to talk to you. You find me any Avenger that didn't murk somebody.
Yeah,
even Spider-Man said instant kill.
Even by accident.
I just want to say that I feel like you're the other person that had no problem with Man of Steel, because I didn't have a problem with it either. So it's a lot of people that did. Movies. Yeah, it's my fiance would love to talk to y'all because he loved that movie.
The line between what he was doing and trying to accomplish, if he made the movies that he wanted to make, what would happen was by the time you got to that last movie and Kal-El of Krypton says, I have to take this fight elsewhere or innocent people could get hurt. You know he means it. It's earned. He didn't know what he was doing the first time. He fought a general who had been trained to be general. Who was he learning from? A farm. He did the absolute best he could with the circumstances that he was given.
All right, real quick, before we go too far down Man of Steel, I do want to say this. Because people always jump on how many people died, this and the third. All right. It's his first day on the job.
Literally.
Imagine you get at your job, your first day. The fax machine is on the fritz. The copy machine breaks. The coffee maker is spitting out coffee. Your computer crashes. The server is down. That's what happened to Superman. All right. He came to work like, all right, guys, hey, I'm Superman. I'm brand new, but I think I'm ready to do this. And then everything broke.
No, what happened to Superman was it was his first day as a Capitol police officer, and he was standing by the barricades, and then all these white dudes came in and was like, "Nah, this is our government. This president won," and they rushed him, and he was like, "Oh, I gotta."
Actually, what happened was, the way that Superman is treated for how he tried to save that city is as close as a white-looking person will ever get to being treated with the responsibility of being black.
Totally.
That's what it is. They graded him on the same scale that we get graded on for anything we do. Anything less than absolute perfection and excellence is a problem. Every single time. They drew Serena Williams like a monster the first time she lost to Naomi. And the first time Naomi decided to stand up for herself, they treated her like she wasn't nothing.
They drew Michelle Obama like an
ape throughout the entire 4 years of the presidency.
And compared her to Melania in the very following inauguration thing. So
well, I mean, she gotta be best. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be best. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't care. Do you?
Man, look, you gotta care about be best. All right. If you can't be best, then who gonna be best?
Be best at grammar.
Be best.
How long have you been in this country, lady? Learn how to speak the language. Oh, that's just for the brown forward.
Yeah, that's
I'm sorry. Wrong people.
Wrong folks.
So, and getting back to the Superman of it all, right? Whether or not it's genuine, whether or not it's reskinning, really reads at the reactionary nature of it all. When this was first announced, I don't think that the Superman was going to be black. This is just, I don't have any inside information, any of that. It just felt like a lot of people on the internet felt that way. And then somebody at the office was like, okay, I know we just sold everybody to Discovery, but maybe we ought to make them black. That's how I feel. I really feel like that's what happened. Because
it definitely comes off like they're trying to use up the black algorithm juice. They're like, look, people will be talking about it.
Ta-Nehisi Coates just writes a Superman movie.
Right. Well, and that was my thing. I was like, so, all right, we get the black dude. Now he's got to write a black superhero movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially after he's built, arguably, all this equity writing Captain America for like 5 years, 6 years, and and doing the Marvel thing for like a decade. Now, even now, we jump the movies, and he's got to write the Negro. Let's do that. Let's do that thing.
Yeah, and that's the kind of, I guess, I don't want to say it's a drawback. It's not a drawback, but it's kind of the conflict with this, because now, yes, you have Black people writing Black characters, Black people behind the scenes, and yes, we've just talked about there could be more of that. But in general, it's moving that way. But it's only the Black characters. White people get to write everybody. In Invincible, you had Asian characters who were white.
Yep.
You had Asian characters who were white.
Yep.
So white people get to write everybody. And it's very rare that they put a person of color, not just Black, but anybody.
The whole community.
I think they're still betting on the monolith, right? Like I still think in their mind, they can always just find one of us that can talk to most of us, and that'll be enough. Right? Because even the logic of Ta-Nehisi Coates, who, again, I love him. I love what he's written for Case for Reparations. I like some of what he did for Black Panther. I like a lot of what he did for Captain America. But I can't help but feel with as many talented Black writers, some of whom in the wake of Ta-Nehisi getting that job got called up, right? Worked on Future State, started working on regular titles. I find it curious how frequently those comic book writers who are of African American descent get skipped over for literally the most noteworthy Black author in America of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that Ta-Nehisi Coates doesn't love comic books, doesn't have a deep and abiding passion for stories like Black Panther or Captain America, or doesn't have the right to come in and try to tell some of those stories. I just always found it odd that your Brandon Eastons, your David Walkers, right? People who are veterans to comic book writing don't even get the allowance of completing their story arcs, right? There's a great article that David Walker has up on his blog talking about story arcs for Nighthawk or Power Man and Iron Fist that he never got to write out to completion because arbitrary, Marvel shenanigans, where other people get the chance to fail over and over again. Your man J.J. Abrams just came back from Star Wars like
I had no plan.
He ain't got no plot.
He was like,
look,
no
plan.
He was like, you got me.
When I said it, they told me I was crazy. When I said it, they said, Jason, you an angry Black man. They said, Jay, you don't know what you're talking about. There's a plan. There's a 15-year plan. I was like, these dudes, they got no plan.
They got nothing.
The only plan they ever had was to do it like George did. And what people forget about what George did is, how did he do it? He had a heart attack on the first one. He was late on the rest of them joints. He was making that shit up as he was going along.
I'm about to say, he ain't no plan either.
Maybe he's the sister. Okay, let's kiss on the mouth. No, we related. Like every
the trip is
every set of three movies has the same three problems. You get a good one started. You don't know where to go with the second one. You got too much money now. And now you don't know how to close it out.
The operative term here is allowed to fail. Allowed to fail.
Because
and
you're talking about Star Wars that has a whole story group. Remember they came out, they had this big thing. We got a story group. We got a story group. I'm like, word, cool. All right.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna go out on a limb again and say, like I've been saying for years, Marvel ain't really got no plan either, but y'all ain't ready for that.
I mean,
years from now, we'll hear what they
tell you why I disagree with it.
Yeah, I don't know about
the
that.
The head of the snake at Marvel is Kevin Feige.
Correct.
And I don't judge Kevin Feige just Kevin Feige is a genius. I look at Kevin Feige as the little dog. Have you ever seen that one cartoon? It's an old Bugs Bunny cartoon. It started out with the little dog following the big dog with a little hat on. He's like, what are we going to do today, Spike? Where we going? And he ended up praying on somebody. And at the end of that jump, the big dog following him. That's who Kevin Feige is. Kevin Feige was on the set of them X-Men pictures. And I almost feel like that line where Summer says, what would you expect? Yellow spandex? I feel like that was old boy Toucher McGee.
Brian Singer.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Likes the altar boys a little too much. But yeah, so I think that was him taking a pot shot at Kevin Feige, right? Like your adherence to the hairstyle, making a big fuss about making sure Wolverine's hair is right and all that kind of stuff. That's who I'm looking at for the arches. I don't think they got every little thing figured out. I think that's an oversimplification, just like, the other side is just, driving around with nobody at the wheel at all. I think those arcs, though, and you're not going to hit everything, right? Maybe you say 6 years when you mean 8. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Loki waved this week when in the other joint he didn't. Like, you're not going to hit every joint like that. But you got to have some stakes driven into the ground so you know where you're going to tie your tent up at.
I feel that. I just feel like plan is loose.
It has to be loose by nature though, like because if
you got to see fan reactions and stuff.
Yeah, you make it too rigid, the whole thing collapse. But Marvel got too much money riding on this to not have a plan. They got much money.
I'm with you. I'm with you. We all writers, we all creators, we know. But at the same time, again, like when it's saying commerce driven. So I feel you, but they also got a lot of money on Star Wars, and they ain't had no plan. All I'm saying is,
and speaking of Star Wars,
here's the thing.
Jason and
Star Wars, I kind of feel like Star Wars though is a little bit more. Star Wars is a little bit more. We're gonna get this off the brand recognition.
There it is, and that's what I mean.
That's what Star Wars is, not the
their
Marvel
DC
stuff.
Comics. Star Wars for Marvel is the thing that you just gotta put it out, and the money gonna come in.
Yeah, exactly.
Put on Harrison Ford up on that bit and say, "Chewie, we're home," and just watch the money kind of start running. So they didn't feel like they needed no plan on that.
You could tell.
I ain't gonna front. The Chewie we're home moment was big for a brother. It was big.
It was fire. It was fire.
But that's also because I had been watching this stuff. They were like, we got a story group. We're gonna have novels and comics and movies and shows. I'm like, word. Y'all got a story group. Y'all got everything under control.
That's the same thing they say
Flash
over
forward to Jason
in the other department.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Flash
saying.
forward to Jason and I workshopping the fixture of like the sequel and the prequel trilogy on an episode with ourselves. So I'm like, either A, the story group has no power and Disney is just like, we don't listen to y'all anyway.
There you go.
That's what it is.
So the story group is the holocron. You go in there with Pablo Hidalgo and all of them, and you can quiz them on anything about Star Wars, and they'll tell you. You want to staple something to the end of something else? You want to name that one place that hand mentioned offhand in Empire? Now that's in Rebels. That's what the story group do, right?
Oh, okay.
But it ain't.
They ain't write no stories.
They ain't writing no that blasting story. Your man JJ in there with footnotes and vibes.
JJ coming in and say,
and that's all they were doing. Because
I ain't doing
Star
that.
Wars,
Don't. I ain't doing that.
to them, though, it really is. Star Wars is do what you will. Oh, I don't know. Like it's 5 things to them, and that's pretty much it. And you bring in the story group, and they put in all the little dressing on the edge. But they thought that Star Wars was their money printer. That's why they didn't have no plan. Well, tell the same story again, because Star Wars is the hero's journey. Little boy on the farm meets a wizard, hangs out with a pirate, gets some bad advice, jumps on a spaceship, gets his hand chopped off, comes back home. The world's never the same. There's no arc in that. So Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, same effing story. And with any of those stories, in order to make them dynamic for film, what you have to end up doing is you have to make the characters dynamic, right? Aragorn ain't nobody. Frodo ain't nobody, just a motherfucker with a ring. And if you ring Lord of the Rings, there's no conflict. Like, he got the ring, it hurt him sometimes. He put it on once, he felt weird about it. He threw it in a lava lake after he got his finger bit off.
He just felt weird about it.
Just felt weird about it.
It felt a little weird about it.
Queen got like the short versions of everything.
Like he wasn't really on no, oh man, I gotta have this. It was none of that. That's the movie. The book
I just find it interesting that you guys talk about Star Wars with such excitement because I'm a Trekkie, so I'm just listening like, wow, they're really like.
But see, Trek is good now. Trek is cool.
Trek
is getting their thing too. It's getting
Star Wars' philosophy. Star Trek is where we should be trying to go.
Thank you.
Star Trek is the lesson. Like, if you ever need a lesson in LGBT rights, go back to the episode of DS9 where the Klingon runs into Dax for the first time.
Yep.
She was like, well,
and that was one of the most powerful episodes. That was one of the most powerful episodes. Yeah. That one and Cisco when he went back in time and he was like a newspaper cartoonist. That was one of the most powerful ones. Yeah.
My favorite DS9 is In the Pale Moonlight. Like, and I know it's popular. I know it's cliche, but having to make the hard choice where you got to murk the dude to keep the peace, like that's some real shit. And I love that.
I think that's the thing about Star Trek is that it really does bring in a lot of different issues, but it's not in your face, but you can still sense what those issues are and you can kind of relate to it. where it's like, wow, okay, I see this happening in my own backyard. And I think that's why I ended up liking Star Trek more than Star Wars, even though I know Star Wars is more like fantasy, war, and all these things that you will read in sci-fi books. But I think I follow Star Trek more because it's more, oddly enough to say, it's more grounded for me.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like it. I like it for the same thing Quinn is saying. Like Star Trek is where we should be going. Like
Thank you.
the utopian ideas in Star Trek. Like I just finished reading a few months ago Trekonomics, where it's talking about the economics of Star Trek and how they get to how the Federation gets to that utopian ideal, and how the replicators play into that, and how, you know, the technology of that era plays into that. And I'm like, that's where we need to be moving. That's what we need to be observing.
Yep.
You know,
You mean as a society, or you mean like just in the movie? Oh, as a society.
No, I mean as a like as a real life society. Like the Federation is very inspiring.
Yeah, you can't leave the planet if you can't get over racism.
Yeah.
Word.
And you damn sure can't be on a starship with a dude with gills doing this if you don't like people because they're brown.
I think if they
right?
leave the planet, it's gonna be because of racism. White people gonna leave us here and go somewhere else.
It's gonna be what was that movie with not Ben Affleck, his homeboy Matt Damon,
Martian?
Elysium.
Elysium.
Well, they left us down here, and they had like machines. If you had cancer, you get in the machine, and the machine be like, "You got cancer. Let me get that out there for you." And you come out, and you all young and stuff, and you at the beach, and Elysium was fire. I was like, "Let me go to Elysium," but you gotta afford it though. You gotta have enough Bitcoin to go to Elysium.
You know, that whole idea for Elysium felt like it came from Battle Angel to me. If you go back and look at the original Battle Angel anime or the manga, that's where it came from. That's where it came from.
I always thought it felt familiar.
If you look at how they did it back in Battle Angel, like that, I'm sorry, that I have a soft spot in my heart for that anime because that was one of the first animes I saw, and it was very inspirational to me. I was like, you can tell stories like this? Like, you can do this?
Yeah.
But you go back and they do all that with, like, they have people, you know, they murdering people for parts and robot parts and organs, and people gotta pay their way. One of the kids gotta do all that to pay his way to get to that. What in Elysium is in Battle Angel is that he's paying his way to get up there to that place, and it's like
and it's cyborg and
stuff.
Let me blow your mind. Look up Darren Aronofsky and Perfect Blue, I think is the anime.
Yeah, Perfect.
Go look up all that. And all I'm gonna say is, why not us in behind the scenes, especially because they be stealing frame for frame. So that's why Elysium probably looks like
bar for bar.
Yes.
All right, so
it's like we ghost ride. It's like anime is ghost riding for these cats. Like anime is Drake.
Anime is Drake.
Keep this. All right, so before we get out, I'm gonna start with Takeia. What's something that you haven't seen as far as our representation is concerned, or something that's like rarely seen that you want to see more of?
I think I want to see us more in sci-fi, because I feel like now we've gotten horror where it's us. It's not like just we kind of like we're one guy in a sci-fi movie. I mean, like, where it's us, like, imagine from Black stories of Black imagination. I feel like horror has started to get there, because we talked a lot about how, like, there was no Black horror, and to the extent that if we were Black in the movie, we were getting killed first. That's it. Yeah. That's the extent of horror for us. And now either
we were there to get killed, or we were there to give, like, the spiritual information.
Yeah,
like we because we're gonna give you the we're gonna help you know about the energies and everything. Even though, shouts to the ancestors, yes, we are taught, but stop using us like that. But
I feel like now with fantasy, because I've seen, like, there are some books that are being adapted that are by Black fantasy writers. Like, one of them, you have
Children of Blood and Bone.
Children of Blood and Bone. You have Who Fears Death, which I think is still being made at HBO. I would like to see more sci-fi with us. And I think, you know, when I look at like Far Sector, I feel like Far Sector was just what I would want, but for TV or for like Netflix or for movies. And, you know, just somebody calling somebody High Sedity in a in a in a sci-fi comic book was just everything for me. So just, you know, I want to see more sci-fi. I want to see us traveling the universe, and have it be told by us and written by us.
Word up.
That's low.
Sha-Nee?
I agree with Kia, but also on a video game scale. Not just sci-fi, but fantasy too, where I am a big Final Fantasy fan. I've been playing it since I was little, but you know, you're in those European spaces, even though it was created by Japanese people, but you're in those European spaces, right?
That's a
And
whole nother show.
that's a whole nother
whole-
show. But me as a gamer, what Kia said is right on the mark for me as an artist. But me as a gamer, I would love to see more of us in sci-fi. I would love to see us more in fantasy. Like, you know, we do have our own stories. We do have our own folklores, folk tales that we can derive from. Sci-fi, I would like to be a part of a game where I don't have to create my character. It's just the character's pre-made to be Black or pre-made to be a person of color in general. Because that would be cool instead of just character creation, which that's cool in itself. But I would like to be a pre-made character that's Black or that's a person of color in general. But yeah, I would like to see us in those spaces because I mean, I'm starting to see certain games now. I actually forgot it was an indie game. I forgot the name of it. No, Spiritfarer. That's actually an indie game, and it was a Black girl with big curly hair, and she's like the usher, like she's ushering in all these spirits to the afterlife, and she's Black, and she takes care of them on their journey to a new, you know, to the afterlife. So, and I felt that because it was like, wow, like, yeah, we have our ancestry, we have our magic to us, and I feel like that was used in a correct way because we're guiding someone, you know. So I really like that indie game. And then there was a couple of games that's coming out. I think E3 is going on right now. But I think last year they were having a couple of games coming out that's kind of like sci-fi or kind of just like apocalyptic in a way, but some of the main characters are Black. And that's a step in the right direction, but I would like to see more.
All right, Jason?
Oh man. So I'm gonna be selfish a little bit. One, there are a couple of things I aspire to personally and professionally to see in media as how far we could go. I always mention the picture that Machindo did of dreadlocks with him hovering over the earth or in space and how majestic that looks. I need to see that on, so you know, in film and in media and in animation and in video games. Like my story, One Nation, I aspire to build, do world building where Black folk usher in that sort of utopian society, right? So that's what I want to see on film. Hopefully it's my shit.
Maybe it'll be as good as Jupiter's Legacy.
I hope not. I hope it's not that good. But also, Greg did a book a couple years ago, Greg Illixie, Marasa. And to agree with Takeia and to agree with Sha-Nee, that's a sci-fi book, sort of, but it also has mythology infused into the sci-fi, African mythology, you know, Brazilian mythology. He said he wanted to go into, like, the way that Greg did that book, the artistic influences and the story influences combined with a sci-fi, man, I think that particular book in general, I would watch the shit out of a show like that. Like, that was
Greg
like,
got it. Yeah, Greg's got it.
I mean, with his Nana as well, but I like the sci-fi infusion into Marasa that you know, like that's like, to me, that was like the episode of Lovecraft Country with man, dang, I lost her name. What's my girl name, Quinn?
Ruby.
Yeah, her
Hippolyta,
episode.
okay.
Yeah, Hippolyta. There we go.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm talking about another pronunciation, but yeah, Hippolyta.
Yeah. So that book is that episode, and it's so refreshing and invigorating to see Black people in that space, with our own mythology surrounding us and informing the sci-fi. That's what I want to see.
Man, and back to that was so dope. When she comes back, she's like, all right, cool. I got the answers. We got to go. Like, because we've never had the moment where the Black person comes, is like, all right, cool. I fixed everything. We got to go. Yeah. We never had that. We're always the friend of the friend, or the quirky dude, or the quirky girl that's the best friend of the main person. So
there's
her coming back, the new hair, the arm thing, all that, like, all right, cool. We got to go. We got things to do. I was just like, oh snap, this is dope. I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
There's a character in Marasa. He's the surrogate child of one of the other characters, and he's made of wood, and he's like a wooden doll, and he can create spaceships with his mystical wooden powers. And I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. So like, it's just that infusion, and this is like a mythological thing that he's researched for this particular story, but he integrates it into the sci-fi. Amazing, man. Like, enough praise for my brother, but like, yo, I want to see that. That's what I want to see going forward. So anyway, I'm done. I'm done.
All right, Quinn.
For me, it's just the expanse of nuance. More stories that aren't just Black people from New York and LA. More stories that are about Black people from small towns. More stories that are about the variance of experience that Black people have, and as a result, bring into situations, right? I think some of that normalization is something I look forward to. And just stretch into a space where we normalize different kinds of stories about ourselves, where we don't always have to be the hero, we don't always have to be the good guy, we don't always have to be the saint, we don't even necessarily always have to be redeemable, right? Because I think that speaks to greater flexibility on the other side of the screen, right? As an actor, I get to take on meatier parts if I get to be more full representations of what humanity can represent. As a writer, if I'm challenged to write more complex stories, or to have a series of Black characters that are varying degrees of good and evil, that opens that up. And it helps with the normalcy. So when you do see the space movie where the secret agent man has all of these experiences and pieces of knowledge, it somehow doesn't feel disingenuous, because all we know Black people to do is, you know, play football or rap or sing, right? There was a great...
Be the best friend.
Yeah. There was a great, one of these young YouTuber guys, RDC, Supreme Dream. He was doing the thing where he was like, how they be in Hollywood. Came in and he was like, yeah, I got this pitch. It's an idea for a project. It's called Black Time. It's about a bunch of friends
that one.
who go through time. He was like, okay, and they're trying to escape slavery, right? He's like, no, there's no slavery in there. It's just friends, and they go into time, and they travel through time together. He's like, oh, okay, so they're traveling through time, and so they got to get together for the big musical performance. No, we're not rapping for nobody or nothing like that. We don't. Sometimes we get separated. How can you do your big dance number?
They gotta save the community center, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like, they gotta raise money to save miracles. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Praise God in the process.
I definitely want to see us branch out to Quinn's point without losing what makes us us, because the danger in this is like, and it's true the thing he was making fun of, but the danger is that a lot of the time they still try to pigeonhole us, right? So now it's like, oh, we can't do stories with hip hop in it. We can't do stories with rap in it. Meanwhile, white people out here rapping left and right, listening to us in the suburbs and stuff, but we can't touch our own thing. And that's the danger of when people say we shouldn't do slave movies anymore. We shouldn't do stories with a drug dealer in it. We shouldn't do story, because what it is like there's some people who that might be their story. That might be their story. And you gotta branch out and include more diversity without taking it away.
I think to that point, when you hear people talk about that, that's more about stories that are solely driven by trauma, right?
Right.
I think the complaint about the slave movie is kind of, unless the character lives 300 years, you kind of know how it's gonna end.
You know how it's gonna end.
Right? There is no catharsis for the guy who is you're free of this plantation, but you're still a nigger. So like there's no upside really to that in a story.
Yeah.
Starring
I agree. We have to have more stories that show us being joyous, being just people.
Right. And so you don't abandon one thing, and that comes from not allowing someone else to dictate what is us.
Yeah. But I also want to point in, like, I would like to see stories where we're more vulnerable. Instead of just being strong all the time, being tough all the time, and more vulnerable, not in a way that you already see us vulnerable in these movies that's already being played, but vulnerable in being indecisive or just, trying to figure out how we're going to solve a problem. Like, let's say if I was a mechanic and I'm on this starship, how am I going to solve this? Like, pretty much bring in Gordy, right? Like, bring this guy in. So, how am I going to solve this problem? How am I going to fix this engine? How am I going to do this without blowing up and killing everybody on board? Like, I like to see the vulnerability of someone struggling to figure out things or to solve a problem.
And problem solving in general, right? Like, without having, without dumbing it down because it's a black man. We have a lot of problem solving movies where it's like, Lil Bow Wow has to figure out how to get his mama outside of foreclosure. And he needs to win the lottery or something, He gotta really hustle.
Bring us like more complicated problems.
Honestly, that movie has a scene with him and old boy on his roof where it's actually kind of a real scene.
Like, give us more like indecisive problems, like problems that we try to solve but can't solve, or have us be a detective and we can't solve this to save our life. You know what I mean? Like, give us something with more depth.
Why can't
make us more vulnerable?
The Seven or the Bone Collector. Well, Bone Collector kind of, but the Seven, the Bone Collector. Any of the we could do that, even though we were kind of part in that, but still, you know what I mean.
Well,
if Morgan Freeman. If Morgan Freeman, like, in Seven had was the lead, like, had his own thing, that's kind of more the direction I would think that we should go in, like, where you have you a real person, like, you got real problems. And to Sha-Nee's point, kill the strong black woman trope. Kill it. Kill it. Because
let it die.
Let it die, because I really more than anything, I want to see more black women who are able to be vulnerable, who are able to mess up, who are able to just be people without, and a lot of that comes from the reason why we have those tropes is because of the white gaze. That's the only reason. Those tropes exist because of the white gaze, because we're so scared to show us messing up. And then, some white person takes it and thinks black people are just like this and put it on us in real life. But I want to be able to see a black woman character who is both dope at what she does and still messes up and still is just human.
I don't want this to sound like a contradiction, but like to the point of having like a Seven style movie and that kind of thing, like in the recent Angelina Jolie joint where she's like a fireman, there's this sister in the middle of the movie. She's like she's the wife of the Punisher, the dude that played John Bernthal. But her little vignette in the movie is like the whole movie, right? Like the two dudes come in and they manhandle her and she kind of flips it on them a little bit, and then she gets her win at the end of that. Like, she rides in on a horse and she's pregnant and she's like and she takes the dude out. And I agree with you, you know, kill the strong black woman trope. But again, in terms of having our own thing where we're problem solving on our own without like being the sidekick, like I thought that was a really good part of the movie. Like I was in here in my living room standing up screaming like, that's the end of the movie, I'm out, I gotta get out of here, like that's done.
Yeah, like
because it's nothing wrong with us being brave or anything like that.
Yeah, there's
it's
nothing
just
wrong with being strong. It's just
Right.
that when that's the only character trait you got,
Yeah,
and
that's
there's
weird.
nothing else that's like not a character that's well rounded. Because
Right.
we strong all day. We're probably the most resilient people on this planet.
We're tired,
but we still tired. Like,
and it's like, you know, that's not just one facet of who we are as women. You know, like, yeah, we're
Right.
black and that's our identity, but we're so much more than that. We have ancestries, we have spirituality. Like, yeah, you know, I kind of put in the whole movies about church going, like the whole Medea and all the Tyler Perry movies when it has something to do with church. But that is a part of our culture, but also spirituality, ancestral hoodoo and voodooism, and you know, just everything in between. I would like to actually see more of that, like where Black people throughout the all diaspora, they have different religions. You know, between Islam and, you know, voodoo, hoodooism, and all of these. I would like to see more of that because I'm actually interested in those things and interested in learning more about that, since that is a part of our history.
All right, I gotta drop this. There's two things I want to see. Well, besides all of the books, like, you know, Project Wildfire, Mind to Avenge, One Nation. I want to see all those. You know what I'm saying? I want to see all those made the film. Pay those people their money. Spirits of Destiny, all that. Pay those people their money. Changa, Man, Sword and Soul. What? Because I was never on it. But there's two things I need to see. Star Trek Discovery this year. All right. Hashtag Black Love. All right. Sci-fi don't never have black love. It's always a brother chasing against the other, or a sister chasing against the other. All right. Look. Hashtag Black Love. Second thing. Stop making black men somehow asexual. And like these, like Jason and I talked about it. John Boyega talked about it when he was talking about Star Wars and well, Hollywood does this a lot, where, you know, like the white counterpart, male or female, they're able to have, like, you know, sexual interest and, you know, this, that, and the third. But then the black man comes on the scene and it's like, I just want to go to work, guys. I don't see any pretty women. I don't see anything. I'm just focused on the mission. And I'm like, so those are two things. This all. Hashtag Black Love and hashtag stop making it seem like brothers don't see women, bruh. Like, I mean, at least see them. Like, they're right there.
Or just, you know, or just have like LGBTQ representation more too in those spaces as well.
Right.
So
and to the same thing, like LGBTQ characters in there, like, I don't want to have sex with anybody here. Like, that's what's so cool about Discovery.
Yeah,
like,
LGBTQ characters get played on TV because they, especially if it's two men, never gonna see them kissing. You're never gonna see them doing anything that people in love or in a romantic relationship do. And I'm sorry, everybody else needs to catch up.
Yeah, and it's weird because they're just human.
Everybody else needs to catch up. Exactly.
Yeah, they're human. Love is love, you know.
From what I've heard from some people.
Urge.
Yeah,
exactly.
From what I've heard from some DM conversations, so I won't put no names in, but there's this weird pendulum. Either A, they're like they never do couple things, like never hold hands, never anything, or you come on set, you come on screen and you're like, what? You're gay? I'm gay? Sex time. And it's like, whoa, there's a middle. Just regular, maybe holding hands, maybe kiss on the cheek, maybe arm around the shoulder. Like, there's regular things couples do.
The chemistry has to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you're gay? Me too. Let's do this. It's like, whoa.
I'm about to run that sex time as soon as we get off here.
And even worse, it'll probably be the only other gay person on the whole show. And it's like, you know that doesn't happen, right? Like that. I feel like that. I feel like that about how like when you the only other Black person at your job, and so they
That
try
be
to hook
happening.
you up with the other Black person at your job. Like,
It's like, just slow it down. With that said, guys, we've exercised the demons. I'm gonna throw it to Sha-Nee first. Tell them where they can find you.
You guys can find me on Instagram at Sha-Nee, ShaNeeW25. All my work, sketch work, and stuff is there.
Word up, Takeia?
At Takeia Marie on all things social, and TakeiaMarie.com is my website. You can check out my work there.
All right, and over here, Jason Reeves.
133art, bigdistro.com, on all social media at 133art.
And right over here, Quinn McGowan.
Quinn McGowan, operative.net.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you for rolling with us. We got much more to show y'all, so stick right here. We'll see y'all later. Peace.